I'm out on a nature trail today. I've never been to this one, but it seems real nice. It's I don't know what it's called. I just kind of found it today. I think something called Mound Hill or Indian Mound or something. But it's real nice. And I'm going through it, and I wanted to talk today about what it means to process emotions. What does that actually look like? Forgive me for the camera. This is my phone, and this is my arm length away, so I feel a little bit close to the camera, but that's all right. Oh, my hand's itchy. Forgive me. But I used to hear a lot like, oh, you should process your emotions, You need to think about your emotions, you need to deal with them. But I was never really shown what that looks like growing up. So when people said that, I was just like, oh yeah, you process emotions, but I didn't really know what that looked like. And so I want to try to figure out what that actually looks like. And I've definitely gained more experience now to give me maybe an idea of what that is. Whew. It's also hot outside, mind you. Florida, I think it's about 4:30 right now. So it's not too bad. I'm in the shade. The forest is nice. Might put a hat on, but hey. But like I said, I want to break down what it actually looks like. What does it actually mean to process your emotions, to deal with them, to handle them, to actually face them? And I'm going to bring up an experience in particular that kind of showed that, there's a squirrel in front of me. Check that out. I want to talk about an experience in particular that made me exercise this, experiencing my emotions and processing them. And that was the school shooting I was in. If you don't know, you go to FSU. And last year, I think maybe April 14th, on a Thursday at 11:53, there was a shooter on campus about 3 minutes away from where I was in school. And thankfully, I was fine, and everyone I know is okay. Not everyone is, though. There were 2 fatalities, 2 husbands, and 6 more were shot and injured. And school was canceled for the rest of the year. This was at the end of the school year, 2 more weeks, and it was canceled after that. And, in hindsight, I was okay. The shooter was never in my direction. He actually went the opposite way. Had he gone left instead of right, that would have been me. And I would have been in his area, but thankfully or not, I wouldn't say thankfully, because he went into the direction of other people. So that sucks. That's not great. Thankfully, I was okay in hindsight. But at the time, it was terrifying. Pause. I'm on this trail, and this is so pretty. Has so much better nature than what I'm used to at home. This is so nice. I need a tripod, and I'll put the tripod right here, and I'll just talk. I wish. Oh, hands getting tired. I might stick around here for a minute. But, no one really talks about during the shooting when you have no idea what's going on. Oh, there's a bench. Perfect. We'll sit at the bench for a minute, yeah? Or maybe not. If there's spiders, I'm not a big fan. Maybe I'll stand. But no one really talks about what it's like to actually be in a shooting. Well, maybe they have, or maybe I just haven't listened. But it's terrifying when you're in a shooting. You really have no idea what's going on. I'll tell you how it went for me minute by minute. I was in class. I was in Calc 3. It was about 11:30. I'm going to go sit on that mound. Fuck it. It was middle of Calc class. Normal day. Absolutely normal day. Like, Like, it goes without saying it's a normal day, but you don't really think about it. It really was just a normal day. Wow, this is so pretty. But it was an absolutely normal day. And then I hear sirens. The window's open and I hear sirens. And I don't let me think about it, but I'm like, these sirens have been going on for a minute. Maybe I'll just like look at my phone. Maybe there's something, I'm not sure. I look at my phone and I see a text message from the university. And it says active shooter on campus. Oof, steep. Active shooter on campus. And then, shelter in place and stuff like that. And I was like, what? Sure, no way. Like, you never think it's going to happen to you until you are in a school shooting. And I also see my friends on Snapchat saying, guys, there's a shooter. One of my friends, hey, let's go this way. Come on, this is so pretty. One of my friends, he was there. He was where the shooter was, not far from it, maybe 100 feet away. And I don't think he saw the guy, but he most certainly heard him, opened fire, and everyone running. And he genuinely ran for his life. And I couldn't imagine what that was like. Because, I'll get to that. But I see all this, and I'm like, okay, wow, this is wild. The first thing I do is I text my parents. Because I didn't want them to find out there was a shooting through the news. I wanted them to find out through me. Because if they find out through the news and I didn't text them, that's terrifying. I wouldn't want to do that. I'm going to look at the water. It's really pretty. You can look at the backgrounds. But I texted my parents. I was terrified. I didn't let that on. I was like, parents, I'm okay. I'm in class. We're on lockdown. I told them all that. I kept them updated throughout the whole thing. And then the professor has not noticed yet. Like, it took about 2 minutes after I realized that the professor realized, and I was about to say something, and then the projector on the screen interrupted him, and it was like, hey, there's an emergency, you'll have to lock down. And he actually didn't know what it meant. He doesn't speak English. He does, not very good English. And so he was like, oh, what's this thing on my screen? And he kept trying to take it off. And it's really funny in hindsight, but when this was happening, I'm like, dude, there's a school shooting and you have no idea. But we all figured it out. We let him know, like, hey, there's a shooter on campus. We should probably do something, maybe lock the door, put stuff on the door. And that's what we did. We put some tables and chairs on the door. But the door locked eventually, which later than it should have, but it locked. And we were later escorted by police out of the building and into a safe area. And it wasn't until maybe 3 or 4 hours later, they took us to a whole bunch of places. They took us to outside a building and then into another. And then they sent us at the very end to the Civic Center where they knew it was safe. They're like, everyone just go here. We'll open campus when it's ready and then you could go back. And that's where I went. I went to the Civic Center and I sat there for a little bit. This is just an amendment to the video. In hindsight, I've watched over a little bit. And the shooting, when it was happening, we thought that there was more than one shooter. And you couldn't really look on the news for anything because the news was about 30 to 45 minutes behind everything. So I'm looking at the news and the news is behind, and I'm looking at social media and people who have connections of family in the police force and stuff like that. And we are currently thinking there are 3 shooters across campus and that this is a coordinated attack, which adds to just how terrifying that experience was. Because it's one thing if it's just one shooter, which sucks, but if it's 3, it's like, whoa, this is something serious. Some people are really trying to do some harm, and that's terrifying. And so that really contributed to just how terrifying the shooting was. Because we had no idea. There was no news. The updates were late and slow. Granted, I'm sure they were as fast as they possibly could have been, but they were still slow. still terrifying in the moment, still late, you know? And we were all terrified that this was damn near just a terrorist attack on campus. And so I just want you to keep that in mind when you listen to the rest of what I'm saying. And eventually I was like, all right, you know, I'm kind of hungry. I didn't eat breakfast, so I was really hungry. So I'm like, all right, let me go ahead and go somewhere. I'm hungry. I want food. So we leave the Civic Center and we start walking around. And at this point, the shooting's over. It's been over, but like everything's closed. We have no idea what's going on yet. We don't know what's going on with classes. You know, it's very, and we don't know. It's very confusing. But I'm like, let's just do the basics. Let's eat. I want to get home. Tell my parents. I want to make sure everything's good. We do that. I catch up with all my friends, especially the one that I mentioned was there. I caught up with him that night, and I'll get into that because that ties into the story or the topic of processing emotions. Yeah, it was just really somber on campus. It felt empty. And there's cops everywhere, obviously, yellow police tape, and eventually they put murals up. But I feel like I'm going on a tangent here. It was a very surreal experience. It was very, very eye-opening as well. But it was something I knew I had to deal with. I was like, you know, I'm not going to sit on this and just be like a grumpy old man with trauma. I need to think through this. I need to process these emotions because that was a lot. So what we did, me and my friend, we went to a park. We went to Cascades Park. If you know Tallahassee, you know that place. Very nice park. I liked it. And we went there. I should say before this, we actually went to like BJ's for some bazookies. Because what better than to end off a shooting than with some cookie skillets? You know? I figured that might help the mood, so I figured we all should go to BJ's. That was helpful. Like seeing everyone having some. I was hungry. I was starving. Having food, all that. That was very helpful. On top of that, then, like I said, afterwards we went to Cascades, and we just sat. We just sat in silence for like an hour. And the whole time, I'm just thinking about what happened. You know, I mentioned how it felt surreal and it was confusing, but like, I don't think my words are quite describing how it felt. It was probably the most terrifying moment of my life, was being in that shooting. But I sat there for an hour, quietly, both of us. And what I was thinking about is just how lucky I am. Like, wow, this actually happened. I had to convince myself that I'm not dreaming. This is an actual thing that happened. I am now a victim of a school shooting. Well, I would say, I think victim is the right word. I'm now a victim of a school shooting. And that's just an experience I will carry with me for the rest of my life. I just got to come to terms with that. You know, you don't really think about it, but I did. I had to. I did that. And after, you know, we're quiet for a long time, after a little bit, I'm like, dude, I'm really happy to have you here. I was terrified for you, because I was. Like I said, he was right there. I'm terrified of him. And I can only imagine what he had to process, having quite literally ran for his life. I can only imagine. Because that's probably the most terrifying thing anyone could ever have to do. But that's what we did. I just thought about it. And what I made myself do is I made myself come to terms with what happened and to try to understand how I actually feel about it. And I also wanted to talk a little bit more about processing my emotions and the experience I had after the shooting that I forgot about that also really contributed to me processing those thoughts. When the shooting happened, I texted my friend. I texted my friend and I said, hey, can I come to your house and to stay for the weekend? He lives in a city 2 hours away. He's my best friend. And I just knew I wanted to get out of Tallahassee. I'm like, all right, hold on. This shit's crazy here. Let me just get out. And so I asked him if I could go see him, and he said yes. So that's what I did. I went to his city, went to his house, and we hung out for a few days. But, he worked. He wasn't ready for me to come over. He wasn't planning this shooting in his schedule and wasn't working. He was working. He was busy. So I had to figure out what I want to do with my time. Oh, excuse me again. My allergies are starting to act up. I've been out here for a few hours. So I knew I had to do something with this time. I'm not just going to sit in his room and sit on my phone or whatever. I need to actually do something. So I figured, I went to Cascades in Tallahassee, went to a park, and I just sat there for a few hours and just thought about it. So why don't I try that again? So in the city, I looked on the maps. I was like, oh, there's a few good parks. Let's try going there. And I did that. So I'm looking for deer. I saw some deer earlier today. It was very cool. I figured I'd go to the parks. And so I did. Every day. I was there for maybe 2 or 3 days. And I went to parks. And one day, it was the day that the FSU president was doing a vigil, I think is the word. Vigil for the shooting. I went to get breakfast at Cracker Barrel that day. Cracker Barrel is my comfort food. I don't know why. I don't know why it's my comfort food. I just love it. I need it when I'm feeling down. It helps. But I went to Cracker Barrel for breakfast that day, and I went to go sit down on the rocking chairs outside of Cracker Barrel. Come on, everyone knows those. And I just sat there for about an hour, and I realized, the vigil is going on right now. Let me tune into that. Maybe I'll hear some nice words and maybe something to help. And I did. I mean, it was maybe helpful. I cried. I kind of held it back a little bit because I was sitting in front of Cracker Barrel. Not really the best place to cry, but I wasn't gonna look serious. Yeah, I did that, and that was also a really important part to me learning how to process my emotions and processing the shooting was going to the parks and going to Cracker Barrel and just being alone. Really, I'm just being alone. Just being alone in my thoughts and allowing myself to experience them. And I think I mentioned this before, what I'm about to say now, with allowing myself to feel it and to understand it. I'm back here again because it's so pretty, and I just needed to go somewhere for this. It's so nice. But I wanted to add that because that was very important to me when the shooting was happening, and I wanted to add it to this video. I'll see if I can't think of anything else to add while I'm already out here. If not, then back to the video. And if so, well then here we are. I can't think of something. I just remembered my experience in the week following the shooting. It was one of the best weeks of my life. And what we did, it was me and my friends that were still in Tallahassee. Most of us. I was going to leave. I was going to leave immediately because I knew classes were canceled, so I was going to leave and go home and call it a day. I wanted it to be over. But my friends convinced me to stay just a little bit longer. And I ended up staying for a week longer. And we did a lot of fun stuff together. We went to an abandoned cement factory and took pictures. Uh-oh, I'm getting bit up now, guys. Whew. I'm gonna make this quick. Whew. But we went to an abandoned cement factory, and that was very fun. We hung out a lot, made new friends. And it was honestly just a really good experience. And I'm very glad that we made that experience because it really helped me take FSU back, right? The memories of FSU, I took them back because, after the shooting, all I could think of is a shooting. And now I knew the next time I'm on campus, which every time I went on campus was really rough because all I could, they have flowers everywhere, which are very nice, but very somber, you know? It's very hard to pass through there and not be sad. It was rough, but hanging out with them and having a good time and making new friends was a lot of fun. And it helped me regain, like, to take that place back and make it into something good. And now I can go to campus and not think about it. Granted, I've not been in that same classroom again. I don't want to. I think I would probably relapse or get, remember the trauma if I go back into the classroom and into that building. So I'm avoiding it. I might do it one day if I think I am ready. But it was good. We hang out for a week, did new things, met new people, and things were like, there were distractions, sure, from the shooting, but we were bonding, you know? We all had just gone through that shooting. We all just wanted a sense of community, and we all just needed someone to be there just to have a good time with. And we did that. That's exactly what we did. And honestly, that was one of the most helpful things I've ever done. And I do it. Now we do it all the time. Some of my friends, we just went to another abandoned place. No, this is a joke, by the way. I did not go to any abandoned places. Right? We went to places, we go out more now, just not even to go out to party, we just hang out more. Just because I think we all understand how important that sense of community is in keeping ourselves together. But I think that's also a big part of it that I really didn't mention before this update, is that having people with you and in the community that also have gone through that same thing is very helpful. You know, we didn't need to talk about it. We did. Believe me, we talked about it. We talked about that shooting a lot, but we didn't let it dominate our lives. You know, we talked about it. We were like, yeah, that sucks. And we were all in it. We all understood. But at the same time, we also knew that we just want to be happy. We want to enjoy our last week here. And so that's what we did. We tried to do that, and it worked. Let's be honest, that's like common knowledge. You know, I feel like that is common knowledge. If you go through something, you should find, maybe, up to you, you should find people that went through similar experiences, even not to talk about them, just to experience their company. Find a sense of community that can help you go through the things in your life. I'm sure that's not controversial at all, but it's something I somehow forgot to mention. Mostly because my summer was dominated by doing things alone, which is not how I really love doing them. Granted, I'm here alone because, I need to. I need to do some things alone, but not always. I need to do them in tangential? Together. I need to do them together with people. And that's how you process. Because you can't dwell on things. I'm going to turn back. I was going to leave because I thought I was wrapping up. But I have more. You can't dwell. I say process a lot, but that doesn't mean dwell. You need to stop at some point. You need to end and to move on. And part of that is what we did. We went and hung out, and we had a good time. We talked just about normal things. We watched movies. We did all that. It was fun, and that was helpful in getting past the shooting. Oh, stuff are flying around me. Because if you dwell on it, it's going to eat you alive. And that's the problem. Obviously, that's a problem. And I think I did a good job at that. Even over the summer when I did things alone, I'm outside all night. I'd go in, and I'd go to bed. And that's it. Once I'm done looking at the stars, once I'm tired of it, bored of it, or I just had enough thinking, I'll go ahead and I'll go in, brush my teeth, take my contacts out, go to bed. And that was good. I basically timed myself. And then the rest of the day, I wouldn't think about it. The rest of the day, I can focus on what I'm doing that day. What am I doing? What I want to do. Play video games, go to the gym, eat, cook, whatever it was. You can't dwell on it. I think that's all I have to add. This is going to be a long video, I'm sure, but that's all right. Back to it. And now I can think about the shooting and not have any issues. Though there were times throughout the summer where I'd be in my room or outside looking at the stars, and I'd almost relapse, and I'd almost feel that fear that I felt when I was there in the first place. And a few times like that. And all I would do is I would do the same thing. I would go outside. I'd put some music in maybe. Normally it's going to sound corny, but I listen to Minecraft music when I'm outside alone. It's very calming. It's familiar for me. It's nostalgic. Reminds me of a good time, like a happy place almost. So I use that. Anyways, I do that. I'll go outside and I'll think about it. Like, yeah, yep, that was real. That was me. I'm okay though. That's just the world we live in, and I just understand. All I did is I'm just trying to understand how I felt, what I experienced, come to terms with what I experienced, and how I feel about it. Things I've never done before. It's the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced was that. Before that was just like breakups, and those can be hard for some people, and it was hard for me as well, but pales in comparison to, say, a school shooting. But that's one of the things I did. And I think for me, that's what it looks like. This is what it looks like. I'm out in nature right now. And I've made myself do this every weekend now. Because back in the summer, I used to go outside every day. Every day at night, I'd go outside and I look at the stars. I learned my constellations. And I just would think. Or not. Maybe there's one guy I listen to on YouTube and on Spotify. He's a podcast. Gooby and Dooby. Some of you might know him if you're listening to this video. If not, I highly recommend him. Yeah, I like his style. This is not about him. You should watch him yourself. I'm not going to describe him. But I would just go outside and I would listen to something or be in my thoughts. And I did that every day for the summer. And it was very nice. It was very helpful. It really kept me grounded. Because I'm not going to lie to you. Being home for the summer was rough. I had no friends there. Like, I had a few, but nothing compared to Tallahassee. No one ever wanted to do anything because it's the middle of the suburbs. There's nothing to do around there, and it was just kind of lame. And I was struggling to hold myself together. And doing that was the only thing that really held me together. Was going outside and looking at the stars and just trying to just be comfortable with myself. Some of those nights were really rough. Some of them were hard, and I went to bed and I was sad. I cried a few times, particularly about the shooting. I did cry that night of the shooting, and I couldn't sleep that night. And then nights later, in the summer, some of them I cried again because I just thought about it again. It doesn't happen as much anymore. And again, every time I do it, I allow myself to cry because I'm like, if I hold it, it's just going to get worse. So I let it happen. And every time it gets easier because every time I'm like, yep, we've been through this. I know how to think. I know what I thought. And if I want to change it, I can. But I figured that part out. But I think this is what it looks like for me. It's just being with myself, with my thoughts, and where I want to be. I like doing it in nature or just outside because you get comfortable in your room in a way that I think stops you from really thinking about life. Like, you get too comfortable almost. I have no idea if that's true or if I'm describing that correctly, but sorry, I thought I heard someone. Not to be in my room. I need to be outside or just somewhere different, and that's helpful. I'm going to keep going. This is beautiful, and I've been staring at it the whole time, but I'm going to keep walking now because there's a lot more trail, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot more water, so I'm excited for that. But I think that's what processing emotions might look like for me. But I kind of want to break it down a little bit more. I say I think about it, but what am I doing? I mentioned a little bit, right? I'm coming to terms with what happened, and I'm just like accepting it. I'm like, yeah, like I do feel like that. I do feel like shit. It does suck, but that's okay. I'm allowed to have bad feelings and bad emotions and to not enjoy things. And it's not bad. It's normal. It's a very human thing to do, right? What kind of person are you if you never have anything bad happen to you? Lucky, maybe lucky, but you'll miss out on a lot of development, right? Because of that, I take a lot less things for granted. Where am I right now? I don't think I'm on the trail right now. I am most certainly not. I'm going to go ahead and turn around. Yeah, I don't know where the hell I am. I thought it was a trail, but it leads to nowhere. So I'm going to go ahead and take a backtrack. There was a fork in the road earlier, so I'm going to go take that. Though this is very pretty. This is so gorgeous. But yeah, just coming to terms, like, it's okay. It's okay to feel those things and to think those things. That's just part of being alive, right? I really think it's helpful. I don't think enough people do what I do, especially men. I'm sure we're all familiar with toxic masculinity. I love my father, I love my parents, but most certainly I was raised with toxic masculinity. It definitely took a toll on me as a child. I won't get into all of it now. Maybe I will another day, about my childhood and how I felt. But it wasn't very great. But I will say I've come far learning, and most of it has been abandoning those toxic masculine teachings and ideas, and just being who I want to be, coming up with my own morals, my own values. I let those people pass. I don't want to bother them with my toxic masculinity spiel. But yeah, I really abandoned those, and I think those are what really helped me come to terms with my emotions, instead of bottling them up like I was taught. Boys don't cry, and don't cry in baseball or something like that. But just doing what I know is beneficial for me and what I think is good has been very helpful. I'll be honest. Those people passing completely threw my train of thought off the rails. That's all right. But I do know I was talking about processing emotions, and I got to toxic masculinity. Right. I think I know where I was going with that. Yeah. I was raised in toxic masculinity. I love my father, but that is one of the things I wish he did better. I hope he doesn't see this video, because I'm not sure he'll enjoy hearing that. But that is okay. I hope he knows, if he does see this video, I hope he knows that that's fine. Because we're all learning, and it's a very hard cycle to break out of, especially if you've built your identity on being strong. And if your whole identity is being a strong man, then you don't want to show weakness. And that's part of what toxic masculinity is. And he's a very strong man. He's very strong. I hear people. I don't want to bother them with my spiel. So, if I see them, I might go a different route. Damn it, I think they are where I want to go. I'll figure something out. There seems to have been a tour group over here, which is nice. That means where I'm going is a safe place. I saw them earlier today. They were just kind of chilling. They weren't chilling, they were talking. It looks like a kids group, so that's pretty cool. I like it. I like that, educating children. And this is what's that? Oh, that's fine. This is I guess an archaeological site, so makes sense. But anyways, I'm gonna re-emphasize what I said about my father. I hope he doesn't beat himself up for that, because we're all learning, and there was certainly a time where I was the same way as him. And it's different for me because I'm young, and I haven't built my whole identity yet, right? I'm building as we speak. So for me to change is not so hard. And it certainly is, but it's not as hard. But he's been like that probably his whole life, and I'm almost certain that his father has taught him the same thing, and that he lives by that still. Oh. Get off me, fly. So, it's not his fault. It's not his fault. He did his best. And, that's all we can ask for. And I am here and I am okay. And most of it is because of what he said. He said be a good person and be a strong man, and I think I've embodied that. As best I can, at least. I'm still working. But the work never stops, let's be honest. But back to the processing emotions part. There was a lot of times where I'd be outside on my back patio, and I'd look at the stars, and I would just think. Think a lot like how I'm doing now. This is really just me thinking out loud, where you can also hear me. What I'm going through now is about the same process I would do alone. The only difference is that I am recording. But this kind of thinking things through and thinking about how I feel about them I've learned is very helpful. Helps me develop, turn into who I want to be in a theoretical sense, right? Like, I imagine this is like working the theory of who I am, and me in person, when I actually go out into life, is me practicing. This is where I think about who I want to be and who I am, and then I can go out and practice based off of what I've thought about. And I've done a lot of character development. Funny that that's a word we use now, huh? But I've done a lot of character development during the summer of like who I want to be and my politics and my philosophy and all that. It's a lot. And now that I'm here in Tallahassee, I can actually practice, right? I can actually do it, see how it works, and I can come here and think about it. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job. The processing emotions thing, I'm doing really well. I have made it to the end, made it to a parking lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn around and take that back. But I've done a lot. Processing the emotions have been one huge step in the right direction. And I do it every day. And what I learned is when I do it, I don't want to say every day, I do it every week now. Every day when I was at home, I'm looking at the stars. But I do it every week. And I learned that, when you do it so often, it doesn't always hit as hard as that one time, the first time, right? Because the first time you have a lot on your mind, a lot on your mental. And you're thinking about it, and you have a lot to fight yourself with. Because that's what you have to do. You have to challenge your own beliefs. You have to challenge your intuition. You have to challenge your biases. You have to, in order to come up with, to process whatever it is. And to come to something that is more true to you or just in general, depending on the topic, right? But after the first time, it gets a lot less substantial in a way. Like, it's more normal. Like, yeah, I'm just outside, I'm enjoying it. And I think that's just as important. It's okay to not have anything to think about. That's perfectly fine. And you can just enjoy the nature, enjoy the couch, maybe, if you're just on the couch. Just enjoy it. And that's perfectly fine. And that's something I've learned as well. Wow, this is really pretty as well. That's actually the start over there. I was actually looking at this area, but from the other side. So it's actually pretty interesting. Oh, sorry. Let me get you out of my chin. Oh, it's a bird. Oh, yeah, you can see it there. Oh, he's kind of behind. He's not moving. Oh, there you go. You see him all hopping around, yeah? Yeah, look at that. That's also why I like being in nature, because then you can see animals. And animals are pretty. I like them. Birds, cardinals, squirrels, butterflies. But like I was saying, I do this a lot. And I don't always have something I want to think about and something to really drill on. Sometimes it's just me being there and just enjoying it. I did that last time at Lafayette Park in Tallahassee. That took about 2 hours to walk there. I walked around and just explored. I put some music on. Actually, I listened to some Gooby and Dooby as well. That was very nice. And I just enjoyed it. Towards the end, I started to think about some things, and I let myself. I cried a little bit. I'll be honest. Funny to say that to a video, right? But I did. But I needed that. I realized that I've come a long way. I almost mourned the loss of my old self, as I'm like, wow, I am such a different person now than who I used to be. And that's, in one sense, terrifying. It's like I don't even know who I am anymore. But at the same time, that's exactly what I want. I need to change, you know? I wasn't always well, some say I may not even be a good person now. Who's to say? But I need to change. Everyone needs to change. Constantly. You're never perfect. You can always do a little bit better. And so, I think that's normal. And that's just kind of what I mean. You process sometimes, and sometimes you don't think about anything. Other times, you will. Maybe something traumatic happens or something. Let me read the sign before I keep walking. Loop trail washed out, must return the same way. Oh, that's probably where I was the first time, huh? That's probably exactly it. Let's find out. But, yeah. I don't know if I have anything more to talk about here. I talked about processing my emotions and how I really did so during the school shooting. And I think I touched on what that looks like. Maybe I'm making no sense at all, and maybe this is just useful for me. And that's okay. It's perfectly fine. I'm not doing this for external validation. I just do it because it's an excuse. If I have to talk about it, then I have to think about it. And if I have to think about it, I have to think about it. Otherwise, there's no reason I need to think about it or anything like that. This is just an excuse to get me out here and to get me using my brain. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any thoughts, you should leave them. I'm interested in hearing them. I really am. Some of the best thinking is not when you do it alone, but when you do it with others. Even if they're not in the same room. We can still think about things and talk about them. So, well, that was a piece of grass. Yeah, I'm tweaking. I think I'll let it go, though. I don't think I have anything else to add. If I do, I'll just record a little snippet and I'll add it to the end. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Oh, I found a snake. Let me see if I can't get closer without bothering it. Oh, look at that guy. Look at him. Isn't that so cool? That is my first snake. Oh, I hear a bee. I don't like that. That is so cool. And I mean, that's the end of the trail. I'm adding this to the end of the video here. I think that's the end of the trail, so I'll just turn around. I won't go in front of this guy. But isn't he so cool? Oh, mosquitoes, get off my leg. Ain't that so cool? Oh, I love snakes.